I'd like to introduce our dear colleague Hemantha Withanage of Sri Lanka, Executive Director for the Central for Environmental Justice. Hemantha?
Thank you. Can I share my presentation, please? The book carries several testimonies from Sri Lanka, especially the people affected by the Colombo port city. And also we have put few testimonies around the highway network. The Sri Lanka-China relationship goes back to the 2nd century BC and during the Silk Road time. And the first formal agreement with China initiated in 1952, which is called Rubber Rice Pact. So then today under the BRI, there are so many different projects are happening in Sri Lanka, which is in the road sector, energy sector, and number of other sectors. But at the moment, the Sri Lanka-China relationship is not really the friendly relationship. Sometimes it's more on geopolitical relationship. These are some of the projects happening in Sri Lanka. One of the most controversial project is Hambantota Harbour. Then another controversial project is Colombo Port City. And also other than that, so there are so many number of road projects and several other infrastructure, including water projects and canal projects, etc. So there are a number of Chinese companies are operating in Sri Lanka. I want to bring to your attention about two projects. One is the Hambantota Harbour. This is one of the most controversial projects in Sri Lanka, started in 2008. And it is about US $361 million. Out of that money, about 85% was funded by the China Exim Bank. Then few years later, the port incurred heavy losses, and the government of Sri Lanka decided to lease 80% of the port to China Merchants Port Holding Company for a 99-year lease. So in people's perspective, we lost these assets, and the money we got is about 1.4 billion US dollars, and that started paying back the debt to China. Colombo Port City is another project which is filling the ocean near Colombo Harbour. It is about 269 hectares to build a Chinese port city, or it's called the China Financial Hub. This started with about 15 billion, but unfortunately, still today, after more than 6-7 years, we are not able to get the agreement signed between Sri Lanka and China, even through the right to information law in Sri Lanka. So this become more controversial because at least 10,000 fishing families got affected. Other than there are a number of other impacts in different areas near where they are getting the resources, and they borrow sea sand from different places without a proper environmental impact assessment, and then the fishing families got really affected, and now the coastal erosion is one of the major problem in this area. We also have the highway network. This highway network is a large network now building, extending every day. The highway has some negative impact, especially for those local communities who are really losing their livelihood, their houses, their homes, their temples sometime. So because of that, there was a lot of negative impacts, but at the same time, in the long term, so there are positive impacts. And some of those largest loan Sri Lanka received from the Exim Bank, so they are using for this highway project. One of the major issue with all these type of infrastructure facilities lack of environmental and social safeguards, especially in the China financing. There is no proper safeguards, and that is why the impacts are so high. They are not much respect into the environmental laws in Sri Lanka. So therefore, this lack of law enforcement and the social and environmental safeguard is a major concern for the local community as well as the conservation community in Sri Lanka. So in general, Sri Lanka-China's relationship is quite strong at the moment. And they have already invested more than 11 billion. And out of that, 8 billion actually related to the Belt and Road Initiative projects. And if once they complete some of these huge projects like the Colombo Port City, it will be billions, hundreds of billions worth projects happening in Sri Lanka. I understand that Sri Lanka as a developing country, so we have the capital, lack of capital for new investment. So I think countries like China has the new technology, the capital, but that should be used for betterment of the country. And our president, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, mentioned that Sri Lanka doesn't need loans anymore, but we need investments. I think this is a very good message for Chinese community. I think what we are looking is not really the loans that we cannot pay back at the end, and we have to lease out some of those projects like what happened to Hambantota Harbour. We still, like what our friend from Bangladesh, Hassan Mehdi, mentioned, that we still have a very good relationship with the Chinese people. But that is mostly the cultural, religious, and social relationship. So we can build that relationship through the new opportunities come under the new Silk Road. It could be improving the economic potential in the country without destroying those historical relationships. But I think our message to the Chinese government and to the Chinese people that we love our nature, we love our environment, we love our economy. But therefore, when you investment get involved in the development in Sri Lanka, please don't disregard the environmental and social safeguard. Listen to the people's voices. That is very, very important. And also at the end, we are not happy about all these illegitimate debt or the toxic debts. And if at the end, if we are going to lose our assets to Chinese companies, that is not what Sri Lankan people are happy about. So therefore, I think there's an opportunity, but make it wisely. And we don't need China to play this geopolitical role in Sri Lanka to deal with their the fight, the Cold War on the trade with the Western countries. And we are a strategic place, but at the same time, and we need our freedom to live as the Sri Lankans. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Hemantha. I still don't see that our last speaker, Farouk, is already logged on. I hope he will still be able to catch up. In the meantime, we're going to now move into a few minutes of our Q&A. I think we only have approximately 3 to 5 minutes left. So I would like to call on, open the floor. If there are any questions that you would like to ask, please either put an asterisk on the chat or use the raising of hands button to indicate if you have any questions that you would like to raise, or to write it on the Q&A portion of our of the button. You can just click the button for the Q&A. So the floor is open. Either, yeah, you can use the hands up link or button, or you can actually have an asterisk to the chat page so I can see it and note and see if there's anyone who would like to raise any questions or ask for further information. And maybe now it would be a good time to give the floor to our great colleague from Peoples of Asia Climate Solutions, Tom. He will give you a bit more idea about our plans for the book. And also, I think he's going to teach us a slogan in Chinese that we can be using. So Tom, I'm giving you the floor. Tom Wang. He has a different name in Chinese, so he will tell you about it. Tom, you have the floor.
All right. Thank you very much, Lily. And yes, my name is Xiaojun Wang, and people call me Tom. People outside China call me Tom. I'm from China, but I'm now based in Manila. And I remember quite clearly how 15 months ago exactly, Father Pete and I were hiking through the mountains to visit those indigenous communities to be affected by the Kaliwa Dam. And I was carrying a big bag of rice on my head to work together with everyone. So that was really, really nice. However, it's such a shame that they are not participating in today's press conference, because originally, without COVID-19 pandemic, our original plan was to have offline events to invite the indigenous people together to this event and then talk to journalists and talk to stakeholders from both local government and also from the Chinese government. And also, it's a shame that our colleague from Pakistan is not doing, or for some technical reasons, is not really here to share stories from Pakistan, because the chapter from Pakistan is one of the most typical ones about, especially about climate stories, because we interviewed people from two very different projects. One is a solar park, the other one is a coal-fired power plant. And you can clearly see from these stories that renewable energy, which is clean and healthy and sustainable, is way more welcomed, and people do like it a lot. However, at the same time, coal power plant is quite clearly a problem there. And so, despite all of this, I would really encourage everyone to go onto the website to get even more in-depth stories about these countries, about these peoples and these communities. And after the kind of depressing stories and everything, I also want to share some very positive news. For example, coming from the Philippines just last night, from the Department of Energy, talking that they plan to say no to new coal power plants, which is great, because this is going to send a very strong message to Chinese investors that the Philippines doesn't really want coal power plants. So any money that it will go over to coal power plants will not really have any high returns, and also they will not be welcomed by the country. And this is the kind of message that China really needs to hear. And also at the same time, this week there is one of the most important political meetings going on in Beijing. They're talking about China's next 5-year plan, the 14th 5-year plan, and that will cover how China will develop its economy from the year 2021 to 2025. And in these 5-year plans, definitely energy investment and also China's investments outside China along the BRI countries will be a key focus for everyone to monitor. And after that, I'd like to get Claudette to help me with my presentation. As Lily said, I will start with some Chinese lessons. All our speakers have shared that Belt and Road or the Silk Road, either over the land or through over the sea, have been very, very going on for a very long time. But these lessons are even older. Our first lesson will be coming from 2005 years ago. So next slide, please. Right, so this first phrase is called 在舟覆舟, which means people are the water, while the rulers the boat, and water can support the boat or overturn it. So this saying, this phrase was said by Xunzi, a philosopher from, well, exactly more than 2,500 years ago. in the warring states. And 载舟 meaning to carry the boat, and 覆舟 means to overturn the boat. And as you can see in that stamp in the picture, that is a stamp from Indonesia, actually from 2005, to mark the Silk Road, the maritime Silk Road. So this is the first one, and it's quite interesting. This phrase has been used in many of the dynasties after, the warring states, including our current president Xi Jinping. He has been using this phrase very recently to remind all the Chinese Communist Party members how people are the water and the party is the boat. Next slide, please. And this one, I will start with that picture in the right top corner, which is the oracle form or the shape of the Chinese character to listen, 听. As you can see, it has three parts. The part on the left is the shape of an ear, while the two parts on the right are two mouths. That means a good listener listens to at least two mouths, two speakers. So that's 听. And this phrase is 兼听则明, meaning to listen to both sides, you will be enlightened. So Wang Fu, it was an educator from 85 to 163 AD. And this phrase literally means bright. A bright person or a wise man knows to listen to everyone or to all sides, while the dark or the foolish people only listen to one side. And again, this phrase has been used many times by our President Xi Jinping to remind people that a smart decision can only be made after you have consulted and listened to every side. Next slide, please. And this one is also very famous. The picture is actually a bronze mirror from Tang Dynasty. That was almost 2,000 years ago. So this is the back side, that's just all the carving. And then the other side is very smooth. So in Tang Dynasty, people used this as a mirror. So there was the phrase, the metaphor was that you can use your mirror to correct your clothes or to check your appearances. And at the same time, it's also very important to use history as a mirror, so that as an emperor, as the government people, as the decision makers, we can check whether our decisions will be a good one or a bad one. So the literal translation is, with a mirror, you can reflect on your appearances. With history, you reflect on the ups and downs. So this was said by Li Shiming. He was the emperor Taizong from Tang Dynasty. Again, this phrase has been repeated and used many times by our president Xi Jinping recently. Next slide, please. And now we have come to the current time. These two metaphors we use here is one is green, the other one is sunlight. So green and sun, 绿色阳光. The logo is from the Belt and Road Forum, which will happen again, hopefully in April 2021 will be the third one. And last year in the second Belt and Road Forum, Chinese President Xi Jinping said, Belt and Road Initiative aims to promote green, clean, and transparent development with every project under the sun, meaning they need to be environmentally sustainable, they need to focus on the people, and also they need to be put under people's supervision with high transparency. And with all these different phrases, we will pick one to teach everyone here today to say one of those phrases, and we will just send this message to all the stakeholders, including the local ones and the Chinese ones and the international community. So next slide, please. Our colleague Hemantha just ended his presentation perfectly in the way that, like the aim of our book is to send the stories, to send the voices of these impacted communities directly to the stakeholders, to the policymakers and the investors. So our message is to listen. So as you can see, these two Chinese characters, the first one is to listen, 听 T-I-N-G. That's the pinyin, that's the sound of this character. And the second one is min, meaning people, M-I-N. So today and now, I would really like to invite all our speakers to say it first in your local language. For example, we have Makini in Tagalog, and we have a lot of others that I cannot pronounce yet, but I will learn. And then, so say it in your local language, and then say it in English, listen, and then say this one in Chinese, and we will cut this into our video and then send it to the Chinese stakeholders and to the international communities, as well as the local host countries. And this is our message. Everyone needs to listen to the people first, because as China has said many times that there are 5 connectivities. There's the policy connectivity, there's the trade connectivity, there's infrastructure building connectivity, there's also financial connectivity. But the most important one is people-to-people connectivity. And President Xi Jinping has been saying the development should be people-centered. And the only way for Belt and Road Initiative to become people-centered is how you start with listening to the people. So Claudette, probably we can invite all the participants, all our speakers, as well as our audience online to just turn on their video and audio and say "Film" first. So this is the only Chinese character we will learn today, and we will say today to send it to the Chinese policymakers and investors.